Shalom, giving all praises to the Heavenly Father, Yahawah, Bahasham, Yahawashi, Bahasham, Rawchaa, Qadash. Double honors to the apostles, the bishops, the elders at Great Millstone who rule well. Peace and salutations as always to the elect. And today, basically, we will be discussing, the concept of money as we know it today, as in this debt-based, fractional reserve system of oppression that has, taken root in the planet Earth. We're in Babylon the Great. And as you can see on the screen here, basically we can take, particular, historical points out of, Sumer, Sumeria, Babylon, Babel. All right. And as we know, this is Babylon the Great. We're seeing those very practices practiced here. All right. Right before, our very eyes. All right. And it's tied to heavy spells, witchcraft, enchantments. Okay. And as we go back to Nimrod, the Tower of Babel, this is where we get many of the practices and beliefs, matter of fact, all of them in some shape, form, or fashion, even when you deal with the Greeks and the Romans, they took, all right, to the gods of Egypt, which are synonymous with the gods of ancient Sumer or Babylon, which means confusion with mixing. Okay, even, the trying to mix sexes. All right. All of these concepts go back, all right, to Babel. All right. The original confusion. And my purpose of doing these lessons is for you to know and understand that which is then is now, and there is no new thing under the sun. Let's get that real quick. Ecclesiastes 1:9, because, basically, what we're going to deal with is how this modern system of banking and money and, how the money isn't backed by anything goes back to a ancient concept. As you can see here, the impact of ancient Babylonian money magic on modern economics. So when we say we are in Babylon the Great, all right, we must understand, all right, that all the practices, the idols, the witchcraft, the ideas, the rebellions against the Most High started here. But we're living in witness in its greatest or an even greater sense, the spirit of the anti-Messiah and the practice of banking and, monetary system that Esau, Edom has set up in the earth is highly satanic. All right. And as you're going to see here in this article, which we can't read it all, but you should get your hands on it, or you should find it. Lord willing, I'll leave the link, but it goes into how, as you can see here, the ancient Babylonians believed that money and wealth were the result of magical forces. They believed that certain spells and rituals could be performed in order to bring about abundance. You see, and this is what the people are all into in this world, mainly those who have, garnered some type of fame, or status. When you get to a certain point, that's what it's all about. And this knowledge was passed down through generations. This knowledge was later adopted and adapted by the Khazarian mafia, all right, which the Khazars are the small hats. Okay. Edomites, who converted to Judaism. Okay. And it's going to go into it around the 8th century. It says, who rebranded themselves as the Knights Templar and the Red Shield people. You see this name? Okay. Which ultimately they're Edomites. All right. And again, as we were going to read, Ecclesiastes 1:9, it says, the thing that had been is that which shall be, and that which is done is that which shall be done, and there is no new thing under the sun. Is there anything wherewith it may be said, see, this is new? It hath been already done of old time, all right, which was before us. You see? So, you know, we were in these different captivities, you know, we're just in the modern Babylon. You know, we were in, you know, scattered in Sumer, scattered in, you know, the Neo-Babylonian captivity, you know, and now we're in Babylon the Great. And a lot of the practices that we see being practiced today, you know, coined money, you know, really go back to Sumer. Okay? Sumeria, all right? Babylon, as you can see here, let's see. Where did coin money come from? Mesopotamia. All right, the Mesopotamian shekel, the first known form of currency, emerged around 5,000 years ago. All right, the earliest known limits date to 650 and 600 BC in Asia Minor, where the elites of Lydia, all right, and Lonaya used stamped silver, all right, gold coins to pay armies. Okay, so there you go. These are some of the first findings of this, you know, system, and here it is today. We have coin money, all right, which ultimately the true currency, all right, the true money, all right, which ultimately what is money, all right? Money, funds, means of anything convertible into money, coinage, coin, metal, currency, all right? And ultimately, when you deal with a money or a dollar, what is a dollar? Okay, what is a dollar? A monetary unit or standard of value, all right? And what gives you value, all right, is ultimately the measurement of something, all right? A particular measurement of silver, a particular measurement of gold, a particular measurement of salt. All right, this was the original currency. It kept things flowing, all right, between men, all right, using the earth. The earth was the means of money. You see? And that's what a dollar is, a measurement of something, you know? And what is true value? The things of the earth. So the true money, all right, ultimately came out of the earth. Even when we went to the Federal Reserve in Atlanta, all right, they wouldn't allow you to bring your phone in there, but it gave you the history of money, all right, and how that money, all right, originally was things out of the earth, beaver skin, you know, milk, where does that come from? A cattle, salt, where does that come from? The earth. All of these things were created by Yahawah Bashem Yahawashi, and it kept you in tune with the earth. It kept you in tune with, you know, taking care of the earth, the blessing you have in the earth, which is tied to your power. This current form of money, all right, where you have paper money backed by nothing, which is magic money, which we're getting ready to go into, it detaches you from your power. It has you chasing vanity. It makes you proud. Okay, you have no regard of how you take care of the earth or the condition of the earth. You're just self-indulged and doing you and doing as you will. You have no respect for the things around you. You have no control. You're just in this constant, all right, you know, constant, you know, rat race of money. You see? And the people of you know, the Israelites who happen to run into a lot of money, all they do is just floss the things that they have. All they do is spend it. They don't get together and really, you know, bring about anything that their people can, you know, benefit from. They're just a bunch of slaves. And we've seen, as the scriptures say, what the money of this world can lead to. It pierces, okay, through the soul of men and causes them to ultimately bend the knee to many, many, wicked and demonic forces. This is why we have to lean on Yahawah. The money of this world is tied to some high level witchcraft. Okay? It says these powerful organizations used the money of the knowledge of the money magic to create an economic system that allowed them to amass vast amounts of wealth and power by controlling the flow of money. See, they're able to, and we know this damn devil, okay, in August of 71, Nixon, took, all right, the dollar away from the gold standard, because there was a point in America where ultimately the dollar was backed by gold. Okay? So you actually had something of physical value that came from the earth, which who created gold? Who created silver? Who created, copper, zinc, all of these things that, really the elite have hoarded to themselves, and control the corporations where they can, benefit off of these things and keep the people in these lands that are rich in them on the bottom. All right. But ultimately, as a matter of fact, let me get this real quick. In the book of Ecclesiastes 5:9, it says, moreover, the profit of the earth is for all. The king himself is served by the field. All right. It is the things in the earth. All right. that serves the king. That's what makes the king rich. You see, and Esau, Edom has been able to take away the true value of true money and have you chasing, all right, these empty banknotes, all right, that really ultimately represent debt, and have you under a spell. And that's been used to enslave, all right, nations of people. You see? Proverbs 22:7, the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. See, the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. And this practice of fractional reserve banking, where you have all of this empty money just flowing through the markets and through the system, which creates inflation. Okay, fractional reserve banking, where a bank, which those are getting ready to be a thing of the past as they do away with the dollar, but the bank, is supposed to have so much physical cash in a branch. Okay, let's say this branch has, $1 million of physical cash. All right, but really they have 100,000. The rest, all right, is just ultimately empty money that's on a computer, and they're able to lend that money out and charge interest on it. You see, which ultimately, how can you defeat a system like that? We need Yahawah, the power these devils have to the IMF, the Federal Reserve, all of these different systems where people who rule over them, nobody know who they are. They're not elected by anybody. All right. They're separate, from the government. They're not regulated. And they ultimately have been able to create a system of absolute dominance. And it's tied to heavy witchcraft. Okay? So the king is served of the field, the earth. All right? But the ancient Babylonians had a system. All right? As you can see here, by controlling the flow of money and controlling the supply of currency, they were able to manipulate the markets and create a system of debt and servitude that has allowed them to maintain their power and wealth. All right. The Khazarians and their successors, all right, which the Red Shield people, You see this highlighted word here, which that's now a buzz code because they're being investigated through the Holy Spirit. So, you know, they don't want to be called out, but we're in a time where, you know, there's a investigation going on around you Edomites, centered around you Edomites. That's why all of these things are coming out. You see, we're literally in Babylon the Great. And the elites of this world use those same practices, you know, stemming back to Nimrod. All right, you read about the Epic of Gilgamesh. You know, these were the sons of Ham. So, of course, they would have writings about the flood because Ham, all right, their progenitor, okay, they survived the flood. The Hamites, which ultimately eventually came Cush, all right, who ultimately, you know, later on came Nimrod out of that line. Okay, and they ran, all right, what the Bible describes as the Tower of Babel, a high-level rebellion against the Most High. And these are some of the very practices that were going on during that Tower of Babel. You see? This is where this all goes back to. Okay? It says, by controlling, it says the Khazarians and their successors have used money magic to enslave humanity, both through direct means and through indirect methods. By controlling the flow of money and the supply of currency, which, you know, we have brothers that go deep into this aspect, all right, and can break it down, you know, more technical than me, but I'm just bringing out, all right, the bottom line that literally that which is then is now. All right, this is literally Babylon the Great. You see, we're amongst great confusion, great rebellion. All right, they have been able to manipulate markets and create a system of debt and servitude that has kept people in a state of poverty and oppression. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. By controlling the flow of information and knowledge, they have also been able to suppress and control the minds of the masses. So this is a heavy psyop, psychological operation that we're under here in Babylon the Great. All right, and the money is a big part of that. All right, how they're able to keep you in a position of debt. All right, that thick clay, as the scriptures talks about. Let's get that real quick. Habakkuk, the 2nd chapter. Okay, and we got to get into usury. Habakkuk chapter 2 and 5. Yea, also because he transgresseth by wine, he is a proud man, neither keepeth at home, who enlargeth his desire as hell and is as death, and cannot be satisfied, but gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. And he does that, all right, through, you know, ultimately one of the great ways of fornication that the nations create with him is that dollar, that petrodollar. You know, through the international bankers, you know, as well, you know, controlling, you know, the flow of money worldwide, you know, having these banks, private owned banks set up pretty much all over the world. Okay, to where they're able to control both sides of the spectrum, but they have all people in some shape or another under their control. You see? All of these nations are getting ready to go into a digital currency. You see, no matter how much they so-called disagree, aren't they all going digital? Who do you think's behind that? The elite, the people who were associated with the Khazars, the Red Shield people. That's what Rothschilds mean. Yea, because he transgressed by wine, all right, neither keepeth at home and enlarges his desire as hell. He can never have enough. and is as death, and cannot be satisfied. But gathereth unto him all nations, and heapeth unto him all people. Shall not all of these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him, and say, Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay. And that thick clay represents that debt, you see. That debt, which is ultimately one of his strongholds, one of many strongholds that he has over the people. All right, Ibat weight of pledges, heavy debts. Okay, thick clay. All right, and this is ultimately the system we live in, where you have usury. Okay, and that's what this whole thing is based upon. Interest rates. All right, being able to loan out money but apply interest to it. Okay, and where does that go back to? All right, Muse and Abraham write that 5,000 years ago, Sumer or Sumeria, the earliest known human civilization, and that was after the flood, had its own issue with excessive interest. Evidence suggests that wealthy landowners loan out silver and barley at rates of 20% or more, all right, with non-payment resulting in bondage. See, with non-payment resulted in bondage, all right, and they have so many strongholds on the people, all right, that keep you in a circle, to keep you at a particular level, to keep you to where you're at a constant disadvantage. This was practiced in Sumer, Babylon. Okay? This is where Abraham grew up. Ur of the Chaldees. See? This is where he was born. Just like you was born in you were born in, Babylon the Great, all right, or you're born, wherever you're born, ultimately this whole system is Babylon. But Babylon the Great is America. This whole system is full of confusion. You see, but our forefather Abraham was born, all right, in Ur of the Chaldees. Okay, that's where Abram's father Terah was. All right, when he begot them. All right, Ur of the Chaldees, which when you go into that, or means light, a flame. A city in southern Babylonia, city of the Chaldeans, which are the witches and warlocks of the Neo-Babylonian Empire. Okay? Center of moon worship, which is associated with the Queen of Heaven. All right? Departure point for the Abraham's migration. All right? And Chaldees, Ur of the Chaldees. All right, a territory in lower Mesopotamia. You see, so Abraham grew up witnessing all of that. He saw the real Christmas. All right, see, we, celebrate a watered down version of these rituals that date back all the way to here. It's what Jeremiah, all right, that was when the Neo-Babylonian Empire, because again, you have Babel, you have the Neo, then you have which Babel is associated with Nimrod, Tower of Babel. Then you have the Neo-Babylonian Empire associated with, Nebuchadnezzar, the Chaldeans, the Assyrians as well. Before them, ultimately, we were in that captivity. Chaldean means clod breakers. Kasad Yama. All right. There you go. Those considered All right, those persons considered to be the wisest of the land, the Chaldeans, which you'll see that in prophecy that Babylon the Great is tied to the Chaldeans. Okay, and they're into all of that wickedness. Okay, they're into all of that backwards behavior. All right, which ultimately we are witnessing here today. Again, usury goes back to this area: Sumer, Sumeria, Babylon. Okay, this is where it first was. It goes back to 5,000 years ago, and it's interesting that what they call the oldest civilization goes back around 5 to 6,000 years ago, but they're talking about billions of years in their science. Anyway, going back here, let's go to let's just jump to a point because they go to the history of the Khazars, which are tied to the what you see here, the Ashkenazi Jew, which people mistake as the sons of Japhet. No, these are Edomites, all right, who are ultimately going under the guise of, the chosen people, but their forefathers descend, all right, from the area of Ashkenaz, which, they say is Germany, but it's more like Turkey and, different, areas where these Edomites were scattered. See, you couldn't be, Ashkenaz descends from Japhet, but then a Jew. No, these are basically people who call themselves Jews, whose forefathers come from the land of Ashkenaz, which they tie to Germany. You see, and different areas where they were. All right, it goes into that history. All right, and they converted to Judaism in the 8th century. All right, these are the people who run these banks and use all of this ancient witchcraft. All right, it says the red shield, because that's what this means. And why would the Lord put the spirit on them to call themselves the red shield people? To let you know that this is all right, ruling. All right, this family is a prominent banking family. All right, they're of this sect. When we tell you they run the banks and all of this, it goes back to these people. These people have power on a level, all right, that we can't really even imagine the type of power they have. We know of it through the Holy Scriptures, all right, but to actually, put a word on what they have, and the fatness of the earth, they have that blessing given unto them by Isaac in a nutshell. All right, this family has been involved in the banking finance since the 18th century and has had a major influence over global financial system. All right, systems. The Red Shield were instrumental in setting up the Bank of England, and you could look it up on your own, this term here, and somebody type it into the comment board what it means. All right, in German. All right, Red Shield, you'll see it. It said they were instrumental of setting up the Bank of England in 1694, and their banking operations were eventually extended to the other countries, including France, Germany, and the United States. In 1913, the Red Shield people helped to establish the Federal Reserve of the United States, which the central banking system of the U.S., all right, which is the central banking system of the U.S., and is responsible for setting the monetary policy. They're able to tell you what is deemed money and what is not deemed money. Okay? So you can't go to a store and, buy your, food or your whatever in gold or silver. All right? You have to use what he deems money, these coins, which some of those are considered silver, copper and all of that. but it's a very weakened, just like in ancient Rome, they had the denarius, and they started mixing it with lesser metals, which eventually created inflation. All right, which you can look that up. All right, which we're in Rome all over again. Hyperinflation coupled with debasement of the Roman denarius, just like debasement of the American dollar, caused the Roman Empire to start losing money. And to counter that, they instituted more taxes on the people. And ultimately, your boy Biden promised no taxes, but what he did was pumped a bunch of money into the system. All right. And ultimately, it created inflation, which is worse than a tax. Because now your dollar doesn't have buying power anymore. All right. It's so much money floating around in the system. The dollar loses its value. You see, it's just a bunch of empty money. And we're going to go into a little bit how it's used to create a hub of witchcraft. Again, stand now with thine enchantments, the daughter of Babylon. Okay. And to counter that, they instituted more taxes, thus deepening the disaffection and anger that was already growing amongst the population. It leads to people rebelling. Okay. Yes, Rome did deal with inflation, just as we see America dealing with inflation, because that which is then is now. We are in the second leg of the Roman Empire. You see? And going back here, all right, let's get a scripture real quick. And as you can see here, at the time of Abraham, what was he rich in? Cattle, silver, gold, things of the earth. All right. He knew if he was eating meat, he knew where that, cattle came from, what type of, what stock it is, what it was fed. He owns the land and regulates the policies that go on that land. All right. To keep everything in sync with Yahawah in a righteous way. And we're going back to that way. But what? Cattle and silver. You didn't have no paper money. Now, there came a point in history as, things were, coin money was a part of the currencies of our captivities or particular places where we were. Just like today. You see? But again, let's get this scripture real quick. This is Micah 6:10. Are there yet treasures of wickedness in the house of the wicked, and the scant measure that is abominable? All right, the rulers were dealing unjustly, and this could fall upon you Edomites as well. Shall I count them pure with the wicked balances and with the bag of deceitful weights? And that's how these rulers of this world rule. All right, with deceitful weights. Okay. The Lord hates a false balance. All right. It says, how can I tolerate your merchants who use dishonest scale and weights to keep people at a disadvantage? Now, in our law, you did have, as you can see here, Deuteronomy 23:19, thou shalt not lend upon usury to thy brother, usury of money, usury of victuals, usury of anything that is lent upon usury. But upon a stranger mayest thou lend upon usury. But unto thy brother thou shalt not lend upon usury, that Yahawah thy God may bless thee in all that thou settest thine hand to do in the land, all right, whither thou goest to possess it. And even when you were in debt, there was always the year of Jubilee, where you'd be released from any bondage or debt that you were in. You're able to return to your land. If you had to give it up or whatever it may be, we had a renewing process to basically renew your name. And Yahawashi is our Jubilee in a sense, but this word usury in the Hebrew. All right, nasak. So you can charge interest if you're loaning out, to a heathen. You can do that. All right, but even with that, it was limits. This devil has no limits. Nasak, to bite, to give interest, to lend for interest or usury. You see? And we did this, all right, to establish that, we were a superior people, all right, and, and differentiate how we would deal with our own kind. But at the same time, we never used, or we weren't supposed to use this system to ultimately, enslave people to where they were just on their goddamn knees. The system of usury. See? And Jake got into that. The priesthood and certain rulers. Micah 6:11, shall I count them pure with the wicked balances, and with the bag of deceitful weights? The rich men thereof are full of violence, and the inhabitants thereof have spoken lies, and their tongue is deceitful in their mouth. And that's what the scriptures go into. All right, James 5:1. Go to now, ye rich men, weep and howl for your miseries that shall come upon you. Okay? Your riches are corrupted, your garments are moth-eaten. See, your riches are corrupted. You see? Your gold and silver is cankered, and the rust of them shall be a witness against you. This system is a witness against you of how wicked and unjust you are. All right. And shall eat your flesh as if it were fire. Ye have heaped treasure together for the last days. All right. And behold, the hire of the laborers who have reaped down your fields, which is of you kept back by fraud. See, you keep everything back by fraud, man. All right. Crieth. All right. And you pay people, every 2 weeks so that you can take more taxes out of their check. See, the people who are oppressed and at the bottom of this thing is crying to the Lord. And the cries of them which have reaped are entered into the ears of the Lord of Sabaoth. All right. Ye have lived in pleasure upon the earth. You have been wanton. Ye have nourished your hearts as in the day of slaughter. You have condemned and killed the just, and he does not resist you. All right. So the misuse of riches. Okay. So going back here to this article, just to get to certain points. Let's see here. Yeah. Read this. The Knights Templar got its money practices from the Khazars, a Turkic people who lived in the Caucasus regions and were converted to Judaism, all right, in the 8th century, which this is where you get your modern Jewry, all right, the people who, rule this world. The Amalekites, all right? And this is where you get that term Caucasian, Caucasus, cave dweller. Okay? The Khazars adopted a system of taxation and money circulation that allowed them to become very prosperous. This system involved collecting taxes from the people that they conquered and then using that money to purchase goods and services from the merchants, as well as to lend money to other people and organizations. The Knights Templar adopted this system, and it became the basis for their banking and financial practices. They used the money they collected to fund their military campaigns and expand their network and monasteries, which serve as centers of learning and religious devotion. Money magic is still used today by powerful organizations to manipulate the markets, control the flow of money and information. All right. The Khazarian Mafia and their successors have used money magic in various ways to control and manipulate markets, create a system of debt and servitude. These ways include controlling the flow of money. All right. And when you go into Neely Fuller's 9 areas of activity, money and economics are, certain aspects of their rulership, all right, that they use to dominate the earth. When you talk about the system of Edomite supremacy, it is the people who run the banks, these corporations, who control the entertainment, who control the music, who control the quality of the food, who control the resources. These are the people who rule. And they happen to be Edomites. See? Controlling the flow of money by creating a system of debt and servitude through controlling the flow of money and controlling the supply of currency. They are able to manipulate the markets and create a system of debt and servitude that has kept people in poverty and oppression. All right, controlling the flow of information. By controlling the flow of information and knowledge, they are able to suppress and control the minds of the masses. They have used rituals and spells to bring good luck and increase their own power and wealth, while also creating a system of debt and servitude that has people in a state of poverty and oppression. Okay, let's get the book of Habakkuk. And this is speaking of the Chaldeans, okay, which is synonymous with the witches and warlocks, the Chaldeans that run America. Because when you go to Isaiah 47, and we're living in a time where they no longer control the narrative. They don't control the narrative anymore. You see? This is why their enchantments ain't working like it used to, and ultimately the Lord is getting ready to take them down. Isaiah 47:1, come down and sit in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. Sit on the ground. There is no throne, O daughter of the Chaldeans. For thou shalt be no more called tender and delicate. See? And then it goes to the enchantments, the evil that they practice. Stand now with thine enchantments and with the multitude of thy sorceries, wherein thou hast labored from thy youth. If so be, thou shalt be able to profit. If so, thou mayest prevail. And this is what they're boasting in, prevailing and transitioning from, the paper money, all right, to a CBDC, which ultimately will lead to humanity accepting this charagma, which is a enslavement on steroids. You see? Habakkuk, all right, so the Chaldeans, the daughter of the Chaldeans now, that which is then is now. This is Habakkuk 1:15. They take all of them up with an angle, which is a hook. And that hook, that angle comes with the many philosophies and, witchcraft and the left-hand practices of this world. And the money is a big part of that. They catch them in their net, all right, and gather them in their drag. Therefore, they rejoice and are glad, okay? They catch people in their nets, okay? Therefore, they sacrifice into their net and burn incense into their drag, because by them their portion is fat and their meat plenteous. All of the people they have, drawn into this, rat race, all of the people that they have, ultimately who's been given over to the wine of Babylon, it's made the people mad. Okay, but this is how Esau is able to live, all right, magically delicious on the earth. Their portion is fat by ultimately, catching people in all of these tricks and traps, all right, which ultimately lead you down the path of ultimately being in servitude to him. Just like school, all of those damn loans, all right, look how much interest is tied to those loans, okay? And this is how they win. They catch people in their net, their snare, their traps, and they gather them up as if the people are fish without any rule over them. Habakkuk 1:14, and makest men as the fishes of the sea and as the creeping things that have no rule over them. This is how they do to people, man. They just throw out all kind of traps and you hook yourself to it, and ultimately you're brought into their snare. All right, manipulating markets. The Khazarian mafia and their successors have used money magic to manipulate the markets and create a system of debt and servitude that has people in a state of poverty and oppression. See? This is how their meat is plenteous. They also have used money magic to suppress and control the minds of the masses. Okay? So as you keep going, see here, this is a good one. The connection between ancient Babylonian money magic and oil magic goes back to the origins of the petrodollar. We always talk about the petrodollar. Okay? The petrodollar is a system of currency manipulation and financial control that was created by the United States in the early 20th century. The idea was to create a global currency system based on the U.S. dollar, which would be backed by oil reserves. So you had to buy in the, and trade in dollars if you want to get oil. All right. These devils are slick. This would allow the U.S. to export its currency all around the world. And this is how many nations have created fornication with her. The use of money to purchase oil at a cheaper rate. All right. Let's just go down here. It said this allowed the U.S. to control the global oil market and establish itself as the primary provider of oil. You got to go through them. That's why the dollar is still strong. One of the many reasons. And the sword, it says the petrodollar was based on an ancient Babylonian money system as it relied on manipulating the currency and using oil as a form of collateral. This allowed the U.S. to gain powerful upper hand, all right, a powerful upper hand in the global economy, and it allowed it to leverage its power to control the global oil market. This allowed the U.S. to become the world's primary oil, all right, and create a system of currency manipulation and financial control that still exists today. All right. Let's go to the book of Genesis 27. When you deal with Esau's blessing. Genesis 27. This is Esau's blessing. And Isaac his father, Genesis 27 and 39, answered him and said, behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven from above. When you go to this word fatness, shaman, or shaman, which means oil, fatness, fat piece, fertile place, richly prepared food, fatness, oil. All right, fertile spots or places. And he has all of these things by what? The sword. Going through rape, robbing, and murder and using all of these evil practices. But the scriptures literally said he would have the fatness of the earth. He would control the flow of oil. All right. Which that's through a lot of ties as well. But they're losing a lot of those allies and ties too. It says, let's see here. The red shield controlled the U.S. dollar through the Federal Reserve System, which is the central banking system of the U.S. It was created in 1913, largely based on a plan developed by the red shield people. All right, yada, 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 which these are the Edomites. They have used their influence to manipulate the U.S. economy, all right, and currency for their own gain. They have used the Federal Reserve to gain and lower interest rates, print money, expand the money supply, all of which can affect the value of the U.S. dollar. Additionally, they have used their influence to gain access to privileged information, allowing them to make decisions that will benefit them financially. By controlling the Federal Reserve, the red shield people are able to control the U.S. dollar and manipulate the global economy for their own gain. They will never lose if this system isn't destroyed. They wouldn't lose. and there will be no way for you to win. They have that thick clay, that debt. All right. How do you penetrate that thick clay? All right. You need the rock. All right. The rock from on high. Hamashiach Yahawashi. All right. And it keeps going, you know, as you keep reading. Let's see here. It goes into this particular system, the Phi network. Tally tricks in the Phi network are both more efficient than the ancient Babylonian money magic and fractional reserve banking systems. So they just take these ancient ways and pretty much upgrade them along with their blessing and the technology and everything that they have. Okay. Let's see here. So I'm going to play a little bit of this. Now, this was a good video as well. Babylonian magic. All right. The Maklu ritual, evoking the gods to destroy evil magic. You know, going into, you know, it was all right. And he brought up how, you know, the ritual tied to money magic, you know, had a god named Marduk that blessed it at the end, which ultimately we know in Jeremiah 50, that's, you know, one of the main gods and goddesses that, you know, because it's a dual gender god, you know, as well. All right. But ultimately, that's the vibration that controls this world. But I'm going to go here and play a little bit of this. Central bank digital currencies and Babylonian money magic.
The stuff you talk about on your channel, excuse the pun, it is gold. It's kind of like what we all need to know to understand the not just the Babylonian money system, but the encompassing slavery that comes off it. You know, what's your background? How did you get an interest in this and explaining it to people?
Well, I grew up in Brazil, where we had a lot of inflation, so I was always interested in money. I've been in the UK since 1992. I worked in the city for 20 years, and I was involved in the bond markets, which is a very, is not a market followed in the mainstream. Whenever you hear people reporting on the radio or the news, they say, oh, the FTSE did this and the pound did this. But the bond market is where they set the price of credit. It's very important. I have a university degree in international relations and economics, but I would say that I've learned more from asking questions and doing my own research that I learned at university. And when I was still in the city, I started questioning the system, the structure of the monetary system, and I started looking into it privately. And ever since I've left the city, I've been able to try to tell the public what the monetary system is all about. And like you said, the Babylonian system that we have that actually enslaves the majority of people and leaves the 0.1% with all the wealth. And it's, I'm sorry to say, it's a scam. And the thing is, most people are too worried about paying their bills to have time to look into these things. So I'm fortunate that I've, well, not totally fortunate, just that I ask questions and I like looking into things, and that's what I've done, and that's what I try to tell my viewers about. I follow the markets, but these markets are ultimately controlled by the people who control the money or the currency.
As I was saying to Mario earlier, I read this fascinating book that was recommended to me by one of our guests, Mike McCarthy. It's called The Babylonian Woe, and I can only remember about 2% of this book, folks, probably not even that. But what I got from it is the money system goes back to sort of 8,000 years ago. Let's just say, for example, back then they would use things like cockle shells as a simple system of exchange. So you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. But if I can't scratch yours, I'll give you 2 cockle shells. And these shells can be used anywhere in the region, perhaps, you know, almost, you know, internationally in regions like the Middle East. And that 2 cockle shells is recognised, that's a scratch of the back, or paint your fence, or fix your window, or sell you a chicken, whatever it might be. And then the money merchants got involved, or the greed mongers, and they thought, right, we'll start a ledger and we'll lend cockle shells out to people that don't have them. And when they come to pay them back, instead of we lend 8 cockle shells, we get 8 back, we're going to lend 8 and we're going to get 10 back. Known in biblical terms as usury, banned, I still believe, in certain countries in the Middle East. Money lending, folks, is what we're saying. Almost recognized in the Bible, in one of the stories in there, that usury would lead to the enslavement of mankind. And as this went forward, they took this system.
And that's the system that's described in Revelation, the 13th chapter, which ultimately he's going to use that system to bring you over to his mark. Okay? That's what he's doing.
Into the church.
This is the modern day Tower of Babel.
Churches and the palaces, and they convinced the leaders of the time and the religious leaders that your wealth doesn't lie in looking after your people. Your wealth lies in accumulating these cockle shells. You know, the start of materialism, folks. Cockle shells obviously naturally or eventually turn to gold, silver, precious metals, gems. And so you have these people that should be looking after you suddenly convinced by these
capitalism, very
clever money people that no, your wealth, your importance comes from how much gold you've got down in the vaults, and funny enough, we'll control that for you. And then of course that's come forward through the centuries, Mario, and we've seen fractional reserve banking, so lending out this stuff money that doesn't actually even exist. We saw the start of the central banking system. I've said enough just to give, and of course we're now moving into ultimate form of money that doesn't exist, which is digital money. Mario, that in itself, and I don't understand bonds, I have a rough idea of shares and all, I don't think I need to know that to know we got a serious problem here.
What? Right, because people get into it deeper, you know, I'm more basic in the bringing this out, but as he said, this, you know, this understanding what they're doing as far as, you know, usury and how they're using it to, you know, pretty much put themselves in a position to have you as their slave forever. All right, to a point where they're going to try to mark you and, you know, put a patent on you, make you a traceable, trackable, you know, just a barcode, a scannable product in their system. And that's why so much witchcraft tied to that dollar. What do they have? All kind of Egyptian, you know, secret symbols, demons, because there's spells tied to it.
What you said about the cockle shells is interesting. I've read up a lot on the Austrian School of Economics, and they have a regression theorem analysis. So you go back to see how things started and then come forward. And that's what they've done with money. And money started, actually before money, you had direct exchange, which is barter. So like you said, if you were, I don't know, you had a farm and you had eggs, and then you needed to get some milk from another farmer, but the farmer that had the milk didn't want eggs. So that was a problem. Bartering is always a problem. And what the Austrians talk about is what evolved through time, and it can be anything, was the most marketable commodity. It's a commodity that everyone wants, and that actually you don't actually consume it. And that's what money is. And yes, money can be corrupted. Like you said, that it's been corrupted, it's been turned into nothing. But I think also there's a good part of money, which means that people can specialize and people can trade from different locations to others, because a lot of places, let's say, have something that you might want here in England that we don't have. So I think money is a good thing. It allows for specialization. I think we'd still be in caves or very primitive if we didn't have the concept of money. But the whole problem has been that, like you said, it's been corrupted. Yeah, money only facilitates.
Yeah, money is a defense, as it says in the book of Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes 7:12, for wisdom is a defense and money is a defense, but the excellency of knowledge is that wisdom giveth life to them that have it. You see, And again, we didn't view money in our ancient world as it's viewed today. Money is a snare, okay, in this system. All right. But in a righteous system, true money is of the earth. And we're definitely going to have more than all of these heathen nations, but they will be able to live in a free world, all right, where righteousness dwells. Although they'll be subject to the law, statutes, and commandments, that will only make them better. Yeah, we will lend to them. I'm sure we'll be able to, lend usury, but they'll never be in a system like Esau's system ever again. And eventually, most likely, they'll have the year of Jubilee where they're able to, be free from certain, debts. They'll always be under us, but a righteous system will be practiced in the earth. You see? Let's go back here and listen to a little bit of this, and then we'll get out of here.
The exchange of value and goods, and that's ultimately what I think is important. If you concentrate even today on learning about something, creating value, and providing something useful to society, that's what makes you wealthy, I think. And the money comes naturally with that, because more people will want to exchange with you. But what we have today, though, is the central banks that started out in the 17th century. I think Sweden had the first central bank, but then you had the Bank of England in 1694. And what they've done is they, first of all, we need to understand central banks, they're only there because the government gives them the monopoly. In the case of the Bank of England, it was the Royal Charter in 1694. And what we had here was a marriage between these money lenders that you talk about and the government. And why do they do that? Well, because the money lenders benefit from the fact that they're lending to a nation. And when you lend to nations, you make a lot more profit. The monarch or the president or whatever, the government has the power of taxation. So it's almost like the bankers will never lose out, because the head of state can always tax, and they can always find crises to justify these the taxation and the national debt. Prior to central banks, if a king or queen wanted to go to war, they couldn't lumber it all on the public, and there wasn't a national debt. But that's what the central bank has allowed the bankers and governments to do, to increase the national debt. And the national debt in 1694 was £2 million. Now it's approaching £3 trillion. And we finance that national debt through inflation, through taxation. We've got the highest taxation in 70 years in the UK. And in government is really big as well. It's more than 50% of GDP. And inflation, as you've seen, is reflected in higher prices. That's the other thing they try to fool you. They tell you that food prices or wages cause inflation, but it's not. It's the fact that the central banks, they can issue all this credit and money out of thin air to buy the government's debt, which are called bonds. And then the government receives this funny money and spends it. And the people in the banking, at the top in the banking community and the corporations around it, they get to use that money first. So, and we get to use it later, and it becomes less valuable. And so in the world that I think would be more just, you wouldn't have central banks. You would have a free market in money, and government wouldn't be involved. And some people might think we have a free market now, that the corporations are too powerful, but they're only powerful because they're actually connected to the government. So that's how I see it in a nutshell. So maybe if you have some more questions.
Yes. Could you, Mario, for those of us that haven't put as much thought to these subjects as we'd probably like to, what the hell is the Nash? When you hear about America saying it's the richest, most powerful country on the planet, could you explain what that means for us?
So watch this. He's going to link, the Babylonian money magic. I mean, you can just type in, Babylonian money magic, and it's quite a bit of information out there outside of YouTube as well. You can look it up. But I just thought that was interesting how, ultimately they had a system of usury and debt tied to all of these rituals and, gods and goddesses. But that's ultimately what's going on over here. Babylonian money magic. idol dolls, bills of Baal. This looks like a Jake who's, probably into something, but he's gonna probably go left. But be sure to pick out the bones, and chew the meat. But yeah, they had various systems of magic. See what this Jake talking about.
Whoa, what's good with y'all? It's your boy Yahawah reporting to you live and direct. You already know where I'm is. Download the Cash App to get it again, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not on my phone right now currently. But anyway, I appreciate the donation, you know what I'm saying? Anything is appreciated. Because a lot of y'all don't understand this shit. Put it to you like this, you know what I'm saying? These dollar bills that y'all worship, let's go to the etymology of doll. Because I do. Because you see two words in the word dollar bill, right? You see bills, which y'all know what a bill is, and you see dollars, doll.
Yeah, everybody's looking at words now. I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure you may get some information out of this, but you go probably find yourself rolling your eyes. But that's that. I just wanted to touch on, this briefly. I didn't want to get too deep into it. Hopefully I'll edify it. On to the next. Shalom.